Good morning. Welcome to Brad Dacus Live. I'm Brad Dacus, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. On today's show, I want to talk about a number of cases dealing with the defense of the unborn and some legal things that are taking place I know you're going to be very interested and want to know about. But first, I want to discuss something that took place recently in Idaho. Now, most people, when we think of Idaho, we don't think of a state that has crazy things happening. I haven't heard about the rioting in Idaho or some other crazy things. But something did happen in Moscow, Idaho. Maybe a little irony there. Moscow, the symbolic of tyranny. That is a little disturbing, and we've got some good news about it. But first, I'd like us to talk about what happened. Michael Peffer, the attorney who heads up the Southern California office for the Pacific Justice Institute. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, my pleasure.
Michael, this case deals with three individuals. They were attending an outdoor worship service near City Hall in the parking lot, outdoors. Should be no problem.
Yep.
But things went south. What happened?
They did go south. So one of the deacons, a guy named Gabriel Wrench, he was detained during a time when they were singing psalms from the Bible, and it was in a parking lot, and the event was hosted by his church. And so what happened is that the police came in because they felt like there wasn't enough social distancing or there was some other problem, but they were outside. This is outside, mind you, and so they arrested these folks and saying that they were causing a danger due to the pandemic.
Okay, because they didn't have their masks on while they were outdoors.
Exactly, right, yes.
Yeah, and they were there doing...
And they were singing, actually,
They were singing songs of praise and worship from the book of Psalms in the Bible.
Exactly.
So, oh yeah.
That's right.
So this has been going on. This took place on September 23rd of last year. This has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
These people have had criminal charges pending against them for months now.
Yeah.
And it's been in court, and the judge presiding over this matter decided to look at this a little differently. What happened?
They did. So they had done this before. The deacon points out that they had actually done these psalm sing along type of things where you went into the psalms and sang them, and with the same mask issue, and they hadn't been no problems were caused. But here now, the attorneys pointed out that that the city violated its own mandate relative to police officers arresting those. And the reason why they say that, why they violated their own mandate, is because the worshipers who were arrested had protected liberties to sing and to practice their faith. And I think now that we're getting this clear, the law is starting to get clearer and clearer and clearer, more courts are realizing that this is not kosher or acceptable to arrest people for being outside worshiping God.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm sure the people of Idaho are probably embarrassed by this.
Yeah, I'm
because
sure.
they pride themselves in being very reasonable. They love the Constitution.
Yeah.
They're not oppressors like some states like California and New York and other states that sort of have a reputation of being oppressive. You comply with the major government mandates and have your freedoms trounced on. Idaho's not that way. So I'm sure many of them were just screaming and yelling, what is going on here?
Right.
I like to think also that the judges there are probably more reflective of the people there in Idaho. So they would probably have a high value of the Constitution. So this came down to a constitutional assessment of whether or not this kind of a criminal prosecution was actually going to survive constitutional scrutiny.
Exactly.
And what do you think? Do you think the judge was right? Do you think that had they been prosecuted and this was appealed and say it went to the United States Supreme Court?
Yeah.
What say you? What do you how do you think that would have turned out?
I think this case goes away fast if it goes to the Supreme Court. If not at the appellate court level before it, the law is straightening out now. And this is why it's really important. that folks, when they're dealing with this, they contact us right away, because this is exactly what we do. They contact us right away, so perhaps we can kind of get the ball rolling soon rather than later, and that therefore be able to help folks not have to live under the umbrella of this Gestapo techniques. But yeah, the Supreme Court has already begun to change the view of their view in terms of by orders, for instance, in the New York case, Archdiocese of Brooklyn, but also in other appellate level cases, telling them to re-examine the law. So I actually think too we're probably going to, this term, we're probably going to get a good solid ruling on the rights of churches during a time of a pandemic.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to see judges fall in line after the Supreme Court decision dealing with the Brooklyn case. I think this is very no-brainer, especially we're talking about outdoor services. I think we're going to see it apply also to indoor services.
I agree.
As that case reflected. But outdoor services, really, this kind of persecution, it makes no sense. Now, we have a case matter dealing with a church in Walnut, California, and it was actually an event that I spoke at. It was at a church. It was outdoors in the parking lot of the church, private property. They didn't have people sitting all close together. In fact, there was no chairs, hardly. It was people just standing and walking, so they keeping distance.
Right.
And a public health officer showed up. Now, there were police officers there, deputy sheriffs who were there on the site, there to protect the church from thugs and BLM and Antifa and whoever else might come and try to violently attack the church and attack the Christians.
Yes.
But there was a villain who did show up. Right. And it wasn't Antifa, it wasn't the anti-Christian BLM bunch, but it was rather the public health officer.
Right.
What happened?
Yeah, it wasn't even the police department.
No.
The police department were supportive of what was happening there. No, it was the health department, who are imbued now with a new sense of authority. I'll put that in quotes, because they don't have the authority to do that, in my opinion, from a legal standpoint. And they became quite agitated, and I know that you were there, and perhaps when the lawyers are around, they have to act as tough as they can. But we're going to fight them on this.
Yeah, we definitely will, and I know you've already filed an objection contesting an appeal contesting this, and we're going to see this all the way through. One thing I think that the church appreciates is the fact that we don't charge them anything. We pick up all the costs for litigation, representation. And you're willing to take this all the way to the Supreme Court too, right?
We take it as far as we can go, actually, because that's what the issue here is. The more of these cases there are where we can establish precedent, the law where we can utilize the Supreme Court's new orders, the better, because then now we start to see, and the Supreme Court has a reason to say, no, we're going to stop all of this right now. And I think this is really important, because now we've got the new president has a mask mandate for all federal buildings and federal property, etc. So I don't think this is going away overnight. We're going to be having to deal with this for a while.
I know our chief counsel, Kevin Snyder, is arguing some litigation, some cases. One of them is dealing with Santa Clara County, which is San Jose, California.
Yeah.
And also it's addressing Governor Gavin Newsom's outrageous limitations on churches and their ability to meet and to congregate safely and reasonably. It's outrageous. So I think that because of that key decisive change in direction from the Supreme Court, because of that critical appointment by the President Trump with regards to Amy Coney Barrett, I think that we're going to see, as you say, the dominoes start to fall, and more judges starting to say, wait a minute, this violates the Constitution. We can't treat people of faith and gatherings of faith like they're second-class citizens, which is what we've seen. I haven't seen any of those rioters arrested because they violated the governor's order.
Right.
In fact, the governors themselves and the mayor of New York City, he was like, oh, that's protected speech. Oh, that's
Yes,
protected speech.
that's right.
But when it comes to people wanting to worship the Lord, that's not protected speech, and we're going to treat you like dirt. And we are standing up to that. And I just want to say, if there's anyone out there watching this program right now, whatever state you're in, if your church or your religious institution is having difficulties, having pushback, threats, call us.
Absolutely.
We're here to represent you without charge.
Yeah, and another important thing to remember on all this is that these restrictions don't work. They just don't work. We see Florida right now, and Florida has almost had no restrictions whatsoever. And their statistics are a little better than California's. So why are we doing this? Why are we shutting down the state, shutting down churches who have a First Amendment right to meet? We just shouldn't do it. That's the bottom line. Is we shouldn't be shutting churches down. We actually shouldn't be shutting businesses down either. So.
That's right. In fact, I know of an institution. It's a business, and they've decided to actually reconstruct what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that the services they provide are going to be with donation only.
Right.
And there's going to be a worship service providing their services.
Wow, that's nice. Good
And
idea.
it was very creative. We had some great ideas and thoughts to help them. And we, of course, we have a newsletter to help business owners, our Faith in the Workplace newsletter that keeps them updated on their rights
Absolutely.
moving forward, which is so valuable, which they can access on our website along with our newsletter,
Sure.
the Legal Insider, and other resources as well. Support our work at pji.org. That's pji.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we also have issues in states like California that are trouncing on other civil liberties and civil rights, and that is dealing with forcing insurance companies, private businesses, to have to fund, how do I say this, to fund the mutilation of teenage girls. Fund girls, I guess, and boys too, who want to have their bodies cut on and have parts of their bodies cut off, their chest cut off, their personal place cut off, because they want to change their gender, because they have gender identity dysphoria, allegedly. This is a serious concern that the government is now stepping in and ordering insurance companies to provide these services to kids probably under the age of 18.
Yeah. And the interesting thing here is not just that insurance companies are being forced to pay for medical procedures. Okay, they always have to pay for medical procedures. But what they're being forced to pay for is medically unnecessary procedures. And here, and perhaps maybe folks that have their kids sitting right there maybe want to, send them out and get a snack for them or whatever right now. But what they want them to pay for is a young girl, even a minor, having her breast taken off. And this is just, it's just an incredible, evil perspective. And there's a doctor here that we're talking about, and she says they claim that this was an anti-discrimination move. That is, this move of making insurance companies pay, that if you will pay for chest surgery, quote unquote, without regard to an age requirement for other conditions, then you must pay for chest surgery for gender dysphoria without regard to age. And she continues that they're basically considering this surgery of mutilation to be the same as if they were removing a cancer. So a young girl's breast being removed as if it was a defective piece that has to be taken off.
Now,
that's the incredible thing here. It's maddening.
Now the other side comes back and they say, oh, but this is a mental illness, gender identity dysphoria.
Sure.
It is a recognized mental illness.
It is.
And if the kids have this physical change and cutting off of their body parts and all, and hormone shots for the rest of their life, and permanent sterilization, which is the fruit of this procedure for males and females, then they'll be happier. It'll cure their mental illness. We know differently, don't we?
Absolutely, that couldn't be farther from the truth. They fare no better having had this surgery, and perhaps even have additional things to worry about and think about. And we've heard testimonies on this from a lot of different folks who have unfortunately gone through this procedure. But the medical establishment is obviously not looking out for their patients. This is, hocus pocus being made into a medical diagnosis. But it's clear that these people don't fare better. It doesn't take care of the real problem. That's the important thing, that the science says the real problem is up here. The real problem is dealing with the psychology of this. And taking off breasts or whatever doesn't help that at all.
And in fact, studies show that those who have gender identity dysphoria often don't have it for the rest of their lives.
That's
in
right.
fact, in the elementary school level, if kids are just left alone, not even given counseling, over 70%, one study shows over 85%, will go back, will no longer have the dysphoria by the time they reach adolescence. And then those, though, who act on this and actually have this surgery, the average transgender person in the United States will not live to see their 30th birthday because of consequential depression and suicide. A large percentage of them go on government funding, Social Security disability coverage afterwards because of their depression, and they just can't do anything. They can't work, so they get on this coverage, taxpayer funded, and it's to their own demise, their own detriment. They can't ever be a parent. They have their body physically, actually their lifespan decreases because their bodies are now dealing with a change in gender treatment with hormones and the like. And it also can result in serious medical consequences.
Yes, and nasty scars, because as well as you do it, you cannot stop scars. And it's a problem. And this doctor, I really like how she put this too, because she kind of turned their argument around. She says, this Dr. Jennifer Morse from the Ruth Institute, she summarizes the ideology of the state that says they think it is really possible for a woman to become a man, and it really is okay for an underage person who can't vote, who can't consent to purchase a car without parental consent or anything like that. It's perfectly okay for them to go on in their own authority, have perfectly healthy breasts removed. That's what the state thinks. That's the ideology that the state is pushing, as if, couldn't be any more normal. But we've never treated mental disease like this. And my heart goes out to people who have gender dysphoria. It's a real condition. There is counseling available, but unfortunately, if you're a minor, you can't even get that counseling.
Why not?
Yeah, because the state of California, and there are other states who have this same law, the state of California has said that a parent cannot go to a counselor and say, hey, my child needs counseling to deal with gender dysphoria. Because it's not, the state doesn't believe it's a problem.
Yeah, even though the DMS-4, DMS-5 says it's a medical condition.
Right, yeah.
They don't qualify it as an illness for political reasons now, but it is a medical condition, and individuals who want to resolve this gender identity confusion, who want it, they're not allowed to get counseling for this.
That's exactly
and yet
right.
they have depression resulting from it, resulting in suicide. This is abuse in the most egregious way.
I agree.
And the studies show it, the stats show it, the medicine shows it. And then one of the lies that people are given who are transgender persons, and my heart goes out to them. I know someone personally who's been dealing with this, and but the fact is that it's not something that they're born with. There's absolutely nothing in the brain biologically to cause them to have this confusion. Studies show that it's the result of environmental influences and factors that have come into play. And that's a whole nother discussion. I'll have to have someone on the show sometime again to talk about that. But it's very serious. Now, you had a case matter involving an actual girl we can't.
16 years old.
16 years old.
Yep.
She had gender identity dysphoria. Allegedly, I guess she went to a Christian camp. She went to some kind of camp or a government camp or hospital of some kind of place for kids who have issues.
Yeah.
And while she was there, and the psychiatrist treating her was convinced that she had gender identity dysphoria,
Yeah.
and then that psychiatrist recommended that she actually have her body parts cut off and injected with hormones the rest of her life and permanently sterilized. That was what that psychiatrist
That's right.
diagnosed. What happened then?
Yeah, and the mother had no choice on this because what happened is this happened through school, and then once the daughter was her daughter was this young girl was saying, "Hey, you know, I feel like I should be a boy. I don't think I'm supposed to be a girl." And the mother was trying to be supportive and love her through it, but said, "Hey, this is the way God made you. You're beautiful the way you are." But that wasn't good enough for the school, because the school now reports this, and they ended up taking the child away so that they could give her hormones, and they began to do the hormonal outreach, they called it, but the
Injections.
Injections, or I don't know the capacity in which they did it,
Okay.
perhaps pills or injections. Either way, very devastating for a young girl. But what happened is we came in and we were the voice for the mom, saying, no, this young girl is okay. She's a beautiful young girl. And to make a long story short, because that case went on for a long time, by the end of the case, the daughter even changed her mind. That's what you were just saying. The daughter changed her mind and said, no, I'm not gonna, I don't feel like I'm transgender anymore. I feel like I'm kind of fluid. Well, okay, we can deal with that. We can continue to work with you. We don't have to cut off your breasts. We don't have to do these very, very invasive drugs. It's really, this is the kind of thing that will cause lifelong damage, not help. Lifelong damage. And there we were. Thank God that we were able to be there and participate in this case, because it really was quite an experience.
Yeah, here we have a Christian parent, loves the Lord, trying to raise up her child in the way she should go, and the government gets involved and basically almost screws everything up permanently.
Oh, absolutely.
For this young girl. And had we not intervened, had you not gone up there and represented this mother and filed the motions, that young girl would be permanently abused for the rest of her life, mentally, emotionally, physically. It's just horrific. And yet, but many states across the country approve of that.
Yeah.
And in California, we see the California Department of Insurance is going to try to require insurance companies to fund this procedure. Yeah. Many states, they don't allow any counseling, so they can't get any kind of help.
Right.
This is really horrific when you look at it, and we could see this even potentially, I hate to think of this, but even on a federal level, depending on what the new politicians elected in Congress and in the White House decide to do. This could be a part of their agenda, if not in the near future, in the long-term future, to make it so that there's no place anyone can go to get any kind of even Christian-based counseling to address this mental illness or this mental condition called gender identity dysphoria.
Yeah, and in this case too, this poor girl, they put her in a group home, and this group home, she got attacked by one of the other patients in the group home. So here she is. The reason why she's dealing with this is because of issues that have happened in her past, and now they're messing her up even more. And so here today, I find out that I was reading an article that the president, our new president, has appointed a transgender a man who says he's a girl as one of the new health directors for the CDC. And I think to myself, where are we? And it's really something else.
Okay.
We're really believing the lie and fiction and calling it reality.
Yeah, it's not logical. It's not scientific.
Exactly.
It's not supported by medicine or the studies. And yet, I'm really disappointed to hear that one of the first things that this new president has done is to appoint someone who is going to be totally beholden to pushing this and increasing the victimization of so many young people who need solid, constructive counseling support. I know, I think the head of one of the heads of John Hopkins Hospital came out and said, we are not doing this procedure anymore. It does not decrease suicide. It does not decrease depression. Does nothing to help their mental state. It has nothing to do with biology or physical illness. We're not going to do this. A number of doctors have been very outspoken, specialists, to do this, but politics and pressure and government grants and et cetera is having a big influence. And I just wonder, how many people is it going to take? How many cases is it going to take for us to come to grips with reality and to realize that this, from a professional, objective, analytical approach, is not logical. It doesn't make sense. We should not do it. It's cruel. It's inhumane. And that's what we're facing. By the way, that group home that she was in, that was a government group home, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yep, it was. And this poor girl,
Not surprised.
She was, and at the end of the day, you could see the thing was tragic as we were in court. You could see the love between a mom and a daughter, and yet the court was basically treating mom like an enemy. Well, that's not what we do here. We took this case. We handle. I'm not going to say where it happened, but it involved an airplane flight several times a month for several months. We did what we needed to do to make this happen, so that this mother could have the representation, somebody in her corner speaking up and saying, no, you are right, Mom. You do have the right perspective.
Yeah, it's so important that people know that we're here to help them and serve them as needed. We have 11 offices across the country.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, we're here and we're willing to do it.
That's right.
And that 16-year-old girl was saved.
Yeah, she was.
She was saved. And I think that's very fundamental, that we recognize how important it is that we don't leave one of these children or teenagers behind, and to fall victim to this hideous agenda funded by the government, with a very high cost to so many young people as we face this challenge moving on.
Indeed.
Speaking of moving on, we're going to do just that, and we're going to talk about some pro-life cases and others when we return right after this.
There is a vast difference between being filled with the Holy Spirit and having the Holy Spirit flow forth from your life like a torrent of living water. The late Pastor Chuck Smith will lead you step by step into a rich and intimate relationship with God, made possible through the work of the Holy Spirit. You will experience the refreshing streams of living water filling your life, then flowing out from you onto a thirsty world. Living Water, a book by Chuck Smith, is our incredible gift this January for any donation of $20 or more. Help his channel broadcast the good news of Jesus Christ 24 hours each day this new year. Become a co-laborer today and help us change the lives of the lost. Simply go to hischannel.com, click the donation link, or send your tax-deductible gift to His Channel, Post Office Box 25, Santa Ana, California, 92702.
His Channel, teaching the gospel on listener-supported television.
Welcome back to Brad Dacus Live. We have seen, Michael, so many cases where Planned Parenthood, this evil organization, has been trying to capitalize and make money off abortions.
That's right.
I know one study showed that I think it was 86% of all the money they take in, revenue they bring in, separate from the government,
That's right.
is directly money for abortions.
That's right.
They're the baby killing industry. That's what they're about. They're not about helping women. They're about exploiting women in times of trial and crises and making money off them. Well, now I understand that a senator wants to know how it is that Planned Parenthood qualified as a small business
That's right.
to receive large amounts of money under the PP program.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened?
Well, here they point out that this abortion giant, and I think that's what they are. They're a giant corporation that specializes in killing babies. But this abortion giant pockets $500 million from the federal government annually. So, given this income, it's a fair question to ask: why? Why are we giving them any money on this PPP program? Why? What is the problem with it? And this individual points out the financial reports released last year show that they made $100 million in profit.
$100 million?
Right.
So, but they somehow qualified to get this taxpayer-funded, forgiven loan program. It's not even really a
Exactly.
loan because it's all this free money,
Exactly.
and they're not a small business. Over 16,000 people employed.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty shocking that they would be able to qualify for that.
It is.
Do you know if they're going to be applying again? I mean, I don't think they'll be able to this time because you have to show a 20% decline in revenue.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe they could, though,
Maybe they
during the
could.
pandemic.
Right. Well, hopefully, and we have Senator Tom Cotton, who, generally speaking, I agree with him. And on this, I agree with him 110%. He's leading this inquiry into why the SBA, the Small Business Administration, why they let these folks get this Planned Parenthood evil abortion purveyors, why he let them get the money out of this program when it wasn't designed for them at all.
Now, in a positive way, churches can benefit from this program.
Yes, they can.
So Planned Parenthood clearly doesn't qualify.
Right.
They're not only murderers, they're thieves. They should be ashamed of themselves. Okay, so in fact, I think they're my favorite people for us to sue. Frankly,
Yeah.
we have
they're
sued them
wonderful.
before.
Yes, we can.
And
it's wonderful to sue them.
would love to sue them. Love it when it resulted in one of their shops being shut down, one of their baby killing mills being shut down.
Right.
So I like to see that. On the flip side, though, we have churches out there who can qualify and benefit from this program, even if they benefited the last time.
Yeah.
My understanding is one of the things they have to show is that in order to qualify to keep their employees hired and continuing to work, is they have to show that at least in one of the quarters of last year, their revenue dropped by at least 25% in just
Right.
one of the 4 quarters of last year.
Yeah.
I think many of them will be able to do that, and I think many of them will be able to qualify.
Yeah, and
What do
we're
you
happy
think?
to answer questions about that as well. If folks that have questions about this, churches, we're happy to answer questions for that. They can reach out to us. But yeah, that really, when we explain it that way, it really does make you wonder, how did Planned Parenthood get this money then? That's not them. They didn't lose money. Or maybe they, through creative accounting, they were able to show some kind of loss. But that's not what this was designed to do. So it's really despicable that we have this taking place where, first of all, one might legitimately ask, why does the government give any money to Planned Parenthood? They shouldn't get any money. Taxpayers should not have to fund abortion. And although now we've seen, we can expect some changes out of the new White House, that's going to give just that. It's going to take away some of the victories that we had under President Trump.
Well, I understand what President Trump did is he said, not only can government money not be used pursuant to the Hyde Amendment to fund abortions,
Yeah.
he said the money cannot be used to go to an institution that does abortions.
Yes.
And Planned Parenthood does abortions, hence no more federal money.
Right.
I am willing to bet if we'll see in the very near future the next president, the newly elected President Biden, signing an executive order reversing that
Right.
and saying, let's pour out the hundreds of millions of dollars to fund the killing of babies, specifically targeting black unborn babies,
Yeah.
because they have by far the highest abortion rate, and Planned Parenthood and these abortion mills specifically target black communities.
That's right. They do.
So I'm sure this is something that anyone looking at this would say from a civil rights perspective, this is outrageous. Martin Luther King would say Martin Luther King Jr., excuse me, would say
Yes.
this is outrageous. And yet, this is what I think we can expect to see from the Biden administration in the days or weeks ahead. I think we're going to see the spigot turned on again to fund the killing of babies indirectly
Yes.
by funding groups like Planned Parenthood and enabling them to keep their doors open.
Yeah, I'm afraid I cannot disagree with that. I think that we're going to see that. As a matter of course, we're going to see that from this administration. And that's one of the sad things, really, that we cope with here now, because a lot of people felt like they couldn't vote for President Trump because he occasionally wrote a nasty tweet. But now here we have. What do we have? We have an administration that has absolutely no qualms about killing babies.
Yeah,
None whatsoever.
no qualms at all about it. In fact, Kamala Harris, she was the one who was, as Attorney General of California, was trying to criminally prosecute those individuals who had exposed Planned Parenthood selling body parts. Instead of going after Planned Parenthood, she wanted to not just go after, she wanted to prosecute and put behind bars
Yes.
those
that's
two
right.
young people who had the courage to expose this and this hideous Nazi kind of a task of selling body parts. It's unbelievable. And yet she's vice president. So anyway, we got to move on. Now there's someone else in Washington I want to highlight as well.
That's right.
She deserves to be called out.
Goes from good to worse, or bad to worse.
Bad to worse. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has accused religious Americans who cast votes for President Donald Trump of selling out the United States over the issue of abortion. Really?
Unbelievable
So
statement.
she's attacking people who voted differently than her. And the demise, the evil, is the fact that they voted to save the unborn.
Yeah, yeah.
So this for her is not just an issue that's, say, secondary. She is an avid advocate and believer and committed to the cause of killing as many unborn babies as possibly can be done through Planned Parenthood by anyone who could possibly be coerced or persuaded to do so. I don't know how someone like that could ever seriously think of the afterlife
yeah.
and sleep at night.
Yeah, I can't either. And she says, does Nancy Pelosi. And now there's one element this is her quote, I have been talking about for a long time that gives me great grief as a Catholic. I think that Donald Trump is president because of the issue of women's right to choose. Hey, I would tend to agree with that, because many people voted for President Trump because he said he was going to and did work out the fact that we're not going to support abortion. It was the most pro-life president in history. So she goes on and says, when he signed that paper saying to the Catholics and all the rest, a woman will not have the right to choose, and when you see the polls about impeachment now, 80% think what happened was wrong, and yada yada. About now she's into impeachment. Yeah. But she, as usual, she has some problems communicating. I won't speculate as to why, but this is ridiculous notion that we Christians are willing to, quote, sell out democracy. Actually, I would trade just about anything to save babies from being killed before they're born.
But we didn't sell out democracy.
Yeah, we did.
I understand. It's totally illogical. I have no idea where that even comes from.
Exactly.
Because we voted.
Yeah.
And people should vote.
That's right.
So
That's right, yeah.
I don't get. I mean, where she's coming from. And also, when she says she's a Catholic, and she cites that as justification for her support of killing unborn babies. Now,
That's
I know
amazing.
Catholic doctrine with regards to this. Catholic doctrine is pro-life. Those who truly believe in Catholic doctrine, who I'd say are true Catholics,
Yes.
cannot be a Nancy Pelosi. They cannot be for abortion.
Right.
They might as well just change to some other denomination that flips around with the wind
Yeah.
and changes their theology
Exactly.
and waves a different flag. They might as well be that. They shouldn't even call themselves Catholics because they're not
Right.
Catholics.
Yeah, yeah.
If they don't accept Catholic doctrine, believe in Catholic doctrine, they're not Catholics.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fake Catholics, I think, in Washington,
Yeah.
and not only
Our
the
new
House
president.
side but also on the Senate side. And
And our new president.
yeah, I mean, he claims to be Catholic.
Yeah.
He wasn't even allowed to get communion. The Catholic priest would not even let him take communion in his church because they said, you're not repentant of your support for the killing of the unborn babies and abortion.
Yeah, and
So to me, it's in defense of the Catholics out there. In no way do I carry along with this assertion that any true Catholic, committed Catholic, can be quote pro-abortion or quote pro-choice, which is non-choice for the unborn.
yeah, and you're right. She's actually turning it into a Catholic value that a woman ought to be able to kill her baby. As a Catholic, this is a value, And to me, it's just really the height of how perverted things have become with many in this Democratic Party here. The speaker, for sure, how perverted it has become that she actually thinks that's a value for the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
which it's not, of
Now,
course.
some people may be hearing this right now and thinking, yeah, I voted because of the personality or feeling, whatever, how they voted. And I realized, gosh, I did. I voted for the killing of the unborn.
Yeah,
And if they made if they did that, God is here to forgive you.
That's
If
right.
you had an abortion out there, folks, God can forgive you. He can forgive murderers. He can forgive mass murderers because when he died on the cross, he said, "It is finished." His blood can wash you clean of any sin out there, folks. So if you're one of those people who've done, no matter what your sin is, what you've done, God can forgive you. But I strongly exhort people out there, if they truly have a repentant heart, do not commit the sin again.
yeah,
Do not vote for candidates that are going to result in more babies being murdered across the United States.
yeah, absolutely.
It's not repentance. You're forgiven when you repent. It's not repentance, though, if you
right.
don't change your attitude and your actions. So if someone is intending to say, yeah, I say bad thing, but gosh, I really like this program or this thing these politicians are promising me, so I'm going to go ahead in the next election, I'm going to vote for this and this because I want these promises. I want my student loan forgiven. I want this or whatever. That's not repentance. And God looks at our hearts.
Yeah, that's right.
And I call upon people out there who have stumbled in this area to repent and know that God, if you're sincere in your repentance, is there to forgive you. If you call upon the name of the Lord,
Absolutely.
He will answer and He will forgive you.
Thank you,
So,
Lord.
yeah, and I got to have that as a part of our messaging because this is very serious, and I will not decrease the seriousness of what we're talking about here. It is, I think, future generations will look back on this nation and see this as the other Holocaust,
Yeah,
and we have to speak up for the unborn. We have to speak up for what's right.
absolutely.
The stakes are simply too high. Now, speaking of abortions and murder,
Right.
a legislator in North Dakota has introduced pro-life legislation that is drawing attention for its promise to punish abortion providers, abortion doctors with a criminal record. How's this? What's going on here?
Yeah, this person, state representative Jeff Hoverson, he says that if the bill passes, the state would fund the delivery of the baby, and also if she chooses to adopt to a couple that is married, that is opposite gender, mother and father, then we should pay for that too. And so it's not just, hey, you're stuck, that's the way it has to be. No, the state is going to do a remedy, but what it's going to say is abortion is illegal in the state of North Dakota. And so, obviously this has its legal challenges, but I like this. I like the pushing against the envelope constantly on abortion, because maybe we get a better set of law from the Supreme Court and maybe we can chip away at this this rampant scourge on our society.
So you think it's going to be difficult for this to survive court review if it's passed saying that doctors who conduct abortions are committing a crime, a felony?
Yeah.
That right now, because of the case law we have right now, that will probably not survive.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court, they have the final say.
They do.
Something like this could be what is the final determination of whether or not Roe versus Wade should be overturned.
Yeah.
Perhaps, particularly if they define the unborn as a person, and they're protecting the life of the unborn as a person.
Right.
I think then we go back to deciding whether or not states have a right to define personhood as applies to the unborn.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's ultimately what we have to find out. That's what we have to get. And of course, the Roe v. Wade completely ignored that question. It ignored the fact that it's a human life. But I think we need to get this happening. I like that some states, the more conservative states, are making calls against abortion and trying to limit abortions, at least, if not as this one in North Dakota. This lawmaker wants to make it a felony to do an abortion.
Right now, states, have the authority to pass laws that are giving, for example, some protection, like requiring 24, 48-hour waiting period.
Yeah.
They can pass laws confidently that require parental consent for a minor under the age of 18.
Yes.
So long as you have an escape clause allowing a minor to be able to go to a judge saying, "Oh, my parents are going to hurt me and abuse me if they."
Yes.
Okay. So we have some other protections that are allowed, some safety measures that are allowed to slow down the process and hopefully give better consideration and more thought-out consideration to those young mothers who are confused or under stress and pressure on the matter. One of my problems I have right now, though, with the status quo is that right now a state can say that it's murder if someone deliberately and premeditatively, say, punches a woman who's pregnant in the stomach.
Yes.
With the intent to cause her to abort and to kill the unborn baby, they can be prosecuted for murder.
Yeah.
And states across the country call it that. They call it, it's murder, it's homicide. So the unborn is a person, a human being,
Yeah.
for purposes of prosecuting someone who causes an abortion, unless the mother has the abortion, or she consents, say, to someone, that is, say, a doctor, to come in and kill the unborn, then it's not a person.
That's right. Yeah.
It seems to me you cannot have the unborn being a person in one scenario and not a person in the other scenario. This violates logic. It violates the principles of justice,
Right.
natural law.
Yeah.
And yet that's what the left, these liberal extremists, are trying to get us to do to further their agenda,
Yeah.
is to advocate that. In fact, I'm willing to bet if they had their way, the far left would probably make it so it's not even a murder if someone does it involuntarily against them.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I wouldn't doubt that at all. And I like the fact that this legislator is thinking outside the box. He's trying to make some things happen, and he analogizes, whether one thinks it's a good analogy or not. He says, well, according to the federal law, marijuana is illegal, but some states are legalizing marijuana, and that's being allowed. Why not be able to outlaw abortion when federally it's illegal to get an abortion? Again, the logic might slip a little bit, but I like that he's thinking outside the box, because we must do something. We must do anything we can to push this, advance the ball on this, and change this society against abortion.
And it also has that compassion language dealing with the state helping to fund the delivery of the baby.
Yes.
So you can't say, the mother can't say, "Oh, I can't afford to deliver the baby. I need to go ahead and kill it."
Exactly.
When you can't have, and also it even helps mothers to be able to have that baby adopted if the mother wants to,
Right.
to a couple, married couple, whether you have opposite genders, a mother and a father, that would be paid for as well. And does the state have the authority to do that? Can they say, look, we're going to fund adoption, but from our perspective, as the studies show, it's best for a child to have a mom and a dad,
Yeah.
and we're going to actually finance. We're going to allow the other
Yeah.
because we have to, pursuant to the case law.
Right.
But we're going to fund moms and dads because studies show that they are the healthiest couples statistically for a child to be adopted into. Do you think that would survive with the Supreme Court?
Yeah, I think with this Supreme Court, it would likely survive. It is an interesting area of the law on whether or not you can condition these tax dollars. But I think the courts have long held you can condition tax money on following programs. And so I think we may be able to get this by, but yeah, I like that.
I'm very confident that this Supreme Court, I think who we have on the court now, would approve this as constitutional. I hope I'm not going to be disappointed, but I think that language should be affirmed. Now, the state has to show a rational basis, so they have to show the studies validating their assessment. It just can't be just personal bias.
Right, exactly.
And say, yeah, I like this couple versus this. They have to show that there is statistics to show that it's in the best of general welfare for them to have this kind of a preference for heterosexual couples to be assisted on with regards to those kind of adoption procedures paid for by the state.
Yeah.
Now, we also have another issue dealing with our society today, and that is dealing with kids after they're born. They're in school, and a study shows that these kids are less likely to commit suicide if they are in a school choice scenario or homeschooled. What's the scenario? What are we talking versus public schools? What's going on here?
Very interesting, and realizing that this is an initial study, the first of its kind, but what they've done is they've shown that suicide rates drop dramatically among youth who are able to benefit from options for schooling and from an environment that meets their emotional needs. So, in other words, if the parents are able to say, boy, our child is not thriving at this public school, we want to send them to another school, then and get the tax credit to be able to do that, the children fare better and there's less suicide. Which makes some sense. It's not illogical that this would make sense.
Yeah, and especially when you have parents who say this school is doing a terrible job, if maybe it's not socially, maybe just academically, and their kids don't feel good about themselves if they are not able to learn, and they get frustrated because they're moving on to the next grade and they didn't learn what they needed to learn for fifth grade when they were in fourth grade.
Right.
Or more likely with suicide, we're dealing more like with seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is, especially I guess they looked at 15 to 19-year-olds in this study in particular.
Right.
So, charter schools showed a 10% decrease in suicide rates among 15 to 19-year-olds.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. 10%, and the authors note that. It could be because they were finding a better fit somewhere and being able to meet their needs more adequately. But isn't that just the point of having school vouchers, to where parents who ordinarily would not be able to afford to send their kids to private school, with school choice they're able to do it, and the child gets more support, the child gets a better learning environment. And frankly, with competition, the parents are able to say, no, this isn't working out. I'm going to send my child over here to yet another school if that's in the child's best interest.
And you have a child, say, who's being bullied.
Yeah.
And picked on in seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, and then in high school. These kids, they often have no options. And the school districts, the bureaucrats, the teachers' unions, the teachers, the principals, they go say, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do. Or, if we catch it or we see this, then we'll,
Right.
da-da-da. But there's nothing we can do. And by the way, your child has to be here whether you like it or not.
That's right.
That's the status quo for most government schools across the country, public schools across the country. It's sad, and the casualties are very high. We saw an increase in suicide rates already because of the pandemic and keeping kids out of schools,
Yes.
even though they're not at risk.
Yeah, that's right.
So they've been dying. They have been dying at a larger number because they've not been allowed to go to school, and they're not at risk, and their parents generally are not at risk either.
yeah.
So
That's
I
right.
have a real beef with the status quo when we're having our children suffer so much, and they don't need to from a medical perspective.
That's right.
So this is like the Spanish flu, where you had young children dying from it massively as well.
Yeah.
This is more like the traditional flu, and so they're suffering suicide that way. But now we also see they suffer from an increased suicide where they're denied opportunities. My understanding is that Governor Gavin Newsom has ordered that no more new kids can transfer from the government schools, traditional public schools, to charter schooling.
Yeah.
So he just cut off that
That's right.
opportunity
Yeah.
deliberately in order to maintain the strength and power of the liberal teachers union
That's a
by
problem.
keeping as many kids in the traditional public schools versus the charter schools where the teachers union does not have control. He's willing to sacrifice the lives statistically of children.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what the study shows. I mean, how that is so corrupt, so
Yeah.
corrupt. And I know the people of California are speaking out against that, and definitely voicing their outrage towards this and other policies as well.
Yeah, and interestingly, this study that we're talking about, they also found that students who attended private schools throughout their kindergarten to 12th grade education were much less likely to report mental health issues later in life. So I mean, and that again, this all makes common sense. And I think this is especially true if you're going to a religious school or a Christian school where you can have values imparted as well as more quality personal education.
Yeah, with private Christian schools, you have more faith as a part of the kids' lives.
That's right.
With faith comes hope,
That's right.
and with hope comes perseverance, so that these kids can make it through tough times, I think, more easily
Right.
than those who do not have hope because they have no faith, because of their situation, whether because of their family or because of the government schools
Mm-hmm.
that squelch and attack faith and students of faith all the time.
Absolutely.
So parents out there need to take note of this. There is a cost, not just academically.
Yeah.
There is a cost mentally and in terms of their survival likelihood of their children if they put their children in a government school or have their kids in a government school. And this is just another reason why I think school choice is so important,
Absolutely.
so valuable. I don't think we'll see it from this federal government for the next 2 to 4 years
Yeah.
anytime soon, but I know states can do something about it,
That's right.
and state legislators can definitely do something about it. Okay, well, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus, president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Let's continue the fight for your freedoms.